Hi everyone, Richard here from Calvin Wazoo, bringing you another video, and with this one I am joining a thread that is jazz vinyl tag. This is a thread being promoted by Tunes from the Man Cave, the channel Tunes from the Man Cave, which I'll have a link in the down under to that so you can check it out. It's got a very long list of items to show, so I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, or at least as quickly as I can, because sometimes I just get talking about a record because of things that I remember and they come to me and I want to share it. How different doors inside your mind, they start opening, and then the information and the recollections start to come out. The other thing about doing this, however, was I was finding records that I hadn't listened to in a really, really long time because of the specificity of the questions. And particularly when it came to finding an example of a particular label, I ended up going through every single jazz album I have, and it's not a huge collection, but to go through, and I'm going, oh wow, look at that, I do have something on the Riverside label, I do have something on the Contemporary label. So it was fun. I enjoyed this, and it got me to listen to records, as I'm going through my collection of again, wow, I haven't listened to this in such a long time. There are, I became aware also that there are some records, jazz records, that I go to and I listen to them with greater frequency. But there's a lot of great stuff here. Let's get started before I'm already 2 minutes in and I haven't shown anything. All right, so the first record to show is an album that got me into jazz. And I'm going to say this is going to be probably late high school, maybe early college. I'm going to double check before I show this what the release year was on this, and it's I can't see it. Let me pull it out here. 1976. So it was the year I graduated high school. And now I'm starting to think, what? I think I was, this is the one that really got me into jazz. It wasn't the first jazz record I ever bought or my first exposure to jazz, as the question implies. This is the first album that really got me into it. And that's this one, Stanley Clarke's School Days. And I don't have any other records with this label. So, Emperor Records. So I don't know if this is a knockoff or an original or whatever. But yeah, this really launched me into my initial love of jazz, and my initial love of jazz was primarily jazz fusion. It wasn't until much later that I began going back and exploring earlier jazz releases and earlier jazz musicians and artists. But this is what it started with. All right, the first jazz album I bought would have been this one, Frank Zappa's Waka Jawaka. I mean, great jazz fusion going on here. Amazing musicianship from Sal Marquez. Great songs. I just really love this album. So I didn't buy it because it's jazz. I bought it because it was a Zappa album. I saw it in the store, knew nothing about it, but it was a Zappa album, so I picked it up. And it has been a favorite ever since. Now showing examples of records from various jazz labels. And so the first one is, of course, the classic Blue Note label, and the one record, I mean, there's just so many different musicians that we could use as an example. But this one I'm showing is Fats, the Fabulous Fats Navarro. Okay, it's a, it's a Blue Note release. It's a plastic lined sleeve, so, but just, to verify, I'll show the Blue Note label. The reason I chose this one, okay, is that there's something a little bit unique about this. This is a DMM pressing, all right, which is, as it says here, direct metal mastering. And now I'm not hugely familiar with the process of direct metal mastering, but my understanding is that when I guess the music is being recorded, it's going directly to a metal master as opposed to first being put on tape. I think that's how it goes. Someone, maybe is a little more knowledgeable. I mean, I'm sure it's in here what the process is. But it's a digitally remastered European pressing, all right, from France. So it's why it's got the OB. So it sounds good, even though it's a digital remastering. Maybe that's what it is. It's a digital, but then it was pressed to metal or something. I don't know. Someone help explain that. Leave a comment in the down under. But that's my Blue Note example. Prestige. The Prestige label, which we know looks like this. And this is a reissue of Django by the Modern Jazz Quartet. Great classic jazz album that should be in everyone's collection, a jazz collection, if you're the least bit serious about jazz. Then the next label is the Impulse label. There's the Impulse label, and this is John Coltrane, A Love Supreme. Great Coltrane, love Coltrane. I think among my jazz collection, the jazz artists, Coltrane is the musician that I have the most releases. Then we come to the Riverside label, okay, which we've got the Bill Evans Trio, Sunday at the Village Vanguard. This is another, reissue, but again, one of those must-have recordings. A lot of my jazz recordings, because I did not know where to start, there was an article in the New Yorker, and I'll see if I can find it when I post this video, and I'll have a link to that article in the New Yorker that lists, like, I think 100 or maybe more must-have jazz releases in a jazz collection. So I put that list in my phone, and so I'm always looking for something that's going to be on that list and then add it to my collection. All right, next one is the Contemporary label. There we go, Contemporary. And this is Art Pepper meets the Rhythm Section. Kind of a West Coast sound saxophonist, jazz saxophonist style. Good stuff. Another one that is on that list of, you want to start a jazz collection, you need to get that in your collection. All right, now the small label. I think this is a small label. It's, but then again, I'm not even sure if it's a US label or if it might be a European label. Don't know very much about it. And I did not look it up, but it's ESP Disc Limited, okay? And what I got here is the Albert Eiler Trio, Spiritual Unity. And I could have used this for the free jazz example. But this is a repressing. And yeah, when I was going through the list and looking for examples, I pulled this one out and I was going, wow, I haven't listened to this in a long time. So the other night I put it on to play so I could have something to say about it. And wow, I mean, yes, this was free jazz. And I was not in the mood for it when I pulled it out to listen. I know I like this, all right, but it's one of those kinds of recordings that I need to be in the right headspace to listen to it. And so after I listened to side one, I went and got something else that was a little more recognizable to listen to. And which I think was one of the other records I'm going to show. But yeah, it's, I know it's a good one, but yeah, but anyway, that's my small label. Now, this one was not part of the deal, but I was kind of surprised. How come Verve was not included? Because Verve was pretty much a jazz label, in the 50s and early 60s. And so I thought, what the hell, I'm going to pull a record for that. And that's when I did the Getz Gilberto. So we've got Stan Getz and Yao Gilberto featuring Antonio Carlos Jobim. Or maybe the Brazilians say Jobim as opposed to Jobim. So maybe the Portuguese pronunciation may be a little different. Whatever. Really good stuff. And Brazilian salsa or what's the genre I'm having trouble thinking of, but is very much a jazz kind of thing, not salsa. Whatever, it might come to me later. All right, so a recording not many know about, but you should have if you ever find it. And it'll be hard to find, and it's going to be expensive to find if you get it with a cover. I got it without a cover. And this is the Sounds of Liberation. There were 2 releases of this. This is a jazz collective, I believe, from, you see, I wrote down some notes because I found this in a $1.99 bin because it didn't have a cover. And apparently this record without a cover has sold, according to Discogs, for $75. No cover. With a cover, it's going to be several $100s. But there were 2 releases. This particular one was limited to 500 copies. It's from 1972 Dogtown Records, recorded in Philadelphia. And the band, and it was also a social movement. It formed in Germantown and Mount Airy neighborhoods of Philadelphia in 1970. Group consisted of Con Jamal on vibraphone, Bayard Lancaster on alto saxophone, Billy Mills on bass, Dwight James on drums, Monette Sudler, or Sudler, it's only one D, on guitar, Omar Hill on percussion, William Brister, a percussionist who also went by the name Rashid Salim. Really, really very cool material. Now there is an other pressing which is considered more original that's available out there, and that'll cost you $1,000. But I found one for $1.99 without a cover. So who knows? You might find it and maybe you might find it. I didn't even check and see if it is on YouTube. Sometimes this stuff's on YouTube. But anyway, it is a record you should have if you ever find it, but be prepared to pay a lot. Favorite bought in 2020. So yeah, this one, Money Jungle. Duke Ellington. I mean, look at this lineup. Duke Ellington, Charlie Mingus, and Max Roach. It's a Tone Poet release. So I got it when it first came out for like 29 bucks. And I guess for some reason, a lot of these, they go up in price. But man, I do really, really love piano-centric jazz. It just really incredible stuff. I really, really, really dig it. And, you know, I had this concept of who Duke Ellington was, thinking more in terms of like big band music. And then when I got this, I mean, it's just this trio, and, you know, not even any, you know, I mean, it's a bass and drums and piano, you know, so just really, really sweet, beautiful, beautiful recording. All right, moving on. A favorite of an artist's discography. And like I just said, I really, really enjoy wonderful jazz piano. And so this is my favorite release of Oscar Peterson. It's the Oscar Peterson Trio on the Town. This is a Japanese pressing, white label, Verve pressing, which isn't that significant, especially in terms of value. But anyway, it's a, you know, mono, just a wonderful, oh man, the piano playing is just so amazing. I really like Oscar Peterson's playing, and, you know, piano-centric jazz. Probably, I like, you know, even though personally I'm a saxophone player and I really like jazz saxophonists and woodwind players, such as the next person I'm going to show. I think the piano-centric artists and groups, that sound is probably, you know, I like that even more. All right, so this one is a favorite bought in a store. All right, I stumbled across this because I recognized the name from a Frank Zappa song. And also, this musician is cited by Frank Zappa, listed in that big list in the Freak Out record, you know, where he lists all these influences, and includes lots of different people, musicians and composers and scientists and other historical figures and so yeah, Eric Dolphy. And this is a unusual pressing on this Douglas label that I found. It was expensive. I mean, it was like 45 bucks, I think. And it was the first Eric Dolphy I ever got. And it was there, so I figured I better grab it, and I listened to it, and I'm like, I was just, wow, blown away. Just really, really amazing stuff. Eric Dolphy, one of my favorite jazz musicians as well. All right, an online purchase. It's been a while, but I think I bought this online. And then this was like a reissue of Cannonball Adderley, John Coltrane, the Quintet in Chicago. It's on the Jazz Wax Records. I guess this is another, perhaps a small jazz label. But love this record as well. And I'm pretty sure I bought this online, probably from Amazon. Okay, then the next one is a gifted record that was either VCLT or, you know, a gifted record. And this is one I got within the last year. Someone sent me Wynton Marsalis and Black Codes from the Underground. Now, And I really love this album. I was really super impressed with this one. It's Preston Palace, Germany, so it's just sounds really great. It's the tape. It's mastered by Bernie Grundman. This particular release, and I guess I had this bias against Wynton Marsalis for some reason. I mean, I have some CDs of Branford Marsalis, and I knew about the Marsalis family and all the musical talent. I don't know why I had this bias regarding Wynton Marsalis, that I thought he was too commercial or something like that. I don't know. But when I got this and then I listened to it, I was, oh man, really, really excellent recording. All right. I kind of cheated on this one for a jazz box set, because I don't have a official kind of box set. However, I do have a release that's in a box. So, and that is this one with Donsef Giant Box, which I paid $7 for. It's 2 LPs and a book. So I had this on CD that somebody burned for me. And so, yeah, this was another one of those records that, and I have a lot of jazz on CD that are like burned copies. And whenever I see, a vinyl release of those that I have on CD, I snap it up. So yeah, Donsef Giant Box. I mean, there's a lot of big names on here, like Freddie Hubbard and Grover Washington, Billy Cobham, Ron Carter, George Benson, but then a lot of other names that I'm really not all that familiar with, like Paul Desmond, Jackie Kane, and Roy Kral. So great record to have, to expose yourself to other musicians, which is the nice thing about a lot of jazz records, because so many records are, just some musicians, really good, famous musicians, and then they get together, they make 1 or 2 records, and that's it. All right, 10-inch. Thelonious Monk, Genius of Modern Music. I have it in a 10-inch, 33 1/3 release on Blue Note. I also have the Genius of Modern Music Volume 2, but that's on a regular 12-inch. As I said, love piano-centric jazz. Then, most recent jazz purchase. This is one that I just recently ordered in the last month or so, came in the mail. Ordered it from Japan because I was primarily interested in another release. It was an anime soundtrack. And because of the cost of shipping, having records shipped from Japan can get really, really pricey. So I added another couple records to the order, so that the cost of shipping, I wasn't going to go like to the next level for shipping, but then the cost gets distributed among the 3, and ergo, all 3 of them I got for reasonable prices, but especially the anime that I wanted. Anyway, back to the point here. This is Ryo Fukui, who Japanese pianist who the Serenity was his first release and just blew my mind away. This one, a letter from Slow Boat. He and his wife started a jazz club in Japan called Slow Boat. And this was his last record released before he died a year, or maybe it was 2 years. I think it was a year later. He died of cancer. And he's got, I think, 1 or 2 other releases I would really love to get in my collection. I have Serenity, which is his first one, which he had recorded, produced, brilliant album, and he had only learned how to play the piano like 4 years earlier. He learned how to play the piano like around, I think, well, a little longer maybe than 4 years. But he didn't start playing piano until like he was 21. And then he releases his first record, Serenity, at the age of 26 or 27. And he's just, oh, man, killer, amazing. And then, you know, the piano playing on this is just freaking amazing. Okay, a jazz that I want to find. All right, and of course I don't have anything to show for it, but I'd really like to find the album Alley Cat by Nucleus. It's just the ones that are available in Discogs. It's just too expensive. I don't want to spend $70 on this record. I really hope I can find, you know, a copy, you know, for less than that. But yeah, when I first heard it, it was one of those YouTube things that came up, and I listened to it, and I was like, wow, this is like super great. I love this. And I looked it up in Discogs, and at that time, I probably should have bought it, because I think at that time it was going for like $40, which I still kind of like. Oh boy, that's a lot of money for a record like that. But now it's like going for like $70-$80, and it's like, you know, as our German friend Michael at 33 1/3 RPM channel, you know, always says, if you know, when you see something that you want, buy it, because the price inevitably is going to be going up. All right, got a couple more here, kind of a long video. All right, so a record I own, but I want to upgrade. So I've got this by the Vince Guaraldi Trio. You know, Cast Your Fate to the Wind. So Jazz Impressions of Black Orpheus. It's on the Fantasy label. It's in playable condition, but it's a little bit, the record itself is in pretty decent condition. I would probably say it's around maybe very good, but you can see with the jacket, it's got, you know, water damage. And it was just one of those records that Vince Guaraldi's material, it's another one. This stuff is really hard to find. So whenever I do see it, I do grab it, kind of regardless of condition, unless it's really trash. You know, and like I said, this one I think is like a very good. So it's going to have some crackles and that. But then it's also, it wasn't that expensive because it got dinged because of the water damage to the cover. I would like to get a much better condition, but also better sounding copy. All right, next one, a free jazz record. Now, I could have used that Albert Eiler record for free jazz, but the one I picked is this one, the Ethnic Heritage Ensemble, three gentlemen from Chicago. And the reason I picked it, and it's on the Mowers Music label. Okay. And but the reason I picked it is because I saw them in Chicago a few years back. They were playing in Grant Park. Up until the pandemic last year, you know, they would have the summer concert series where they would have like 2 shows booked in the outdoor amphitheater there in Grant Park that were free. And sometimes they would charge tickets, but those were for the reserved seats that are down by the stage. But a lot of them, even with the seats that are down by the stage, are free. And then there's this huge grassy area or where you can lay out a blanket and you can bring wine and food and whatever, and enjoy it. So yeah, I was listening, just went to it and never knew anything about these guys, and it was really, really amazing. So yeah, it's got some traditional jazz elements to it in terms of structure, but it's also very, very, very free jazz. And it was beautiful music to be listening to outdoors. And the last one is my Desert Island Jazz record. The whole question about your Desert Island record, I always find amusing, because if you're on a desert island, there's no electricity. How are you going to play that record? But anyway, I guess I get the idea of what we are trying to go for with such a question. And then if push comes to shove, most of the time I would answer such a question is I won't have anything because I cannot pick one. But I guess in this case, I would go with this. Miles Davis, Kinda Blue. That, if I was going to be stuck someplace and I could only have one record to listen to, it would be this, probably. Definitely for jazz, potentially across all genres. I really would have to think if there would be any other record, just because the tone, the timbre, the structure of the music on this record is untiring. I got it on the 6i Columbia label, but it is a reissue. And but yeah, Wynton Kelly, Bill Evans, John Coltrane, James Cobb, Paul Chamberlain, Cannonball Adderley, all with Miles Davis. I mean, talk about somebody who could throw together a band, amazing stuff. All right, woohoo, wanted to get this done. I knew it was going to be kind of long because there are a lot of questions here, but I decided, yeah, I'm going to do this one. I hope you enjoyed this. I think I said I was going to have something in the Down Under, something that people could check on. And right off the top of my head now, I can't remember what that was. However, I did ask, the direct metal master process. If someone knew a little bit more about that, maybe they could post a comment in the Down Under to explain it, or even a link to a page that explains, the process on that. I hope you enjoyed my selections. And as always, remember to pray for the people inside your head, for they won't be there when you're dead.